Awesome. Jason, I am super pumped to chat today. It's a really big topic, and we're going to be talking about showing up, which is super, super broad for everyone. So, just with that, what does showing up mean to you in the context of life or
Oh,
work?
there's so many ways to kind of frame showing up because there's so many different sectors in life. Since we're in a professional network, let's talk about that. Today, I obviously showed up on Casual Friday, so got hat on, sweatshirt. Didn't really think too much about it. Just been a long week, but I think it's all about what you're doing and where you're headed. As far as the actual physical presence, that's one thing, right? And we talk about these things of like, how do you look professionally? How do you go to a client? You tend to try to dress in their way. And this is a simple appearance showing up. I mean, you came from the banking industry. It's all suits and ties, right? I fly back and forth between coasts where I have to wear a suit on the East Coast and flip flops and shorts on the West Coast.
Hold on, I gotta interrupt you. It was a few months back we were talking. You told me this story about Facebook, some conference or something.
No, I went there and I overdressed. I didn't realize I overdressed because I went in a little bit more upbeat, professional, like business casual. So I actually had like a button down on, slacks, nice shoes. And I walked in the door and they're like, "What are you doing? Why are you dressed that way?" And it was somewhat of a mistrust. And then I got made fun of for a while about it. And then you got to down dress, right? You got to roll up the sleeves, take off the button, throw the jacket away, untuck your shirt. I mean, do whatever you can, but don't make that mistake twice. Next time I went there, I dressed their way.
Right, and I think it's important. Similar story. I remember I was when I was a CISO at JP. I went to go meet the Koch brothers, the Koch Industries, right? I'm in the lobby, and at JP, my dress down was on Fridays. I wouldn't wear the vest, but every other day was a full 3-piece suit, right? So I showed up in the middle America, and I'm sitting there, and this lady walks up to me. She goes, "You're from the bank." And I'm like, "How'd you know?" She goes, "You're the only person in a suit." And I'm like, "Oh,
yeah,
got it." Right? Like, but that context matters because what's conveyed, like, so somebody shows up to your house, what's conveyed in that dress, like,
and I think we always use dress as the first step, right? Whenever we're thinking about business, professional environments. But then we got this other thing that kind of drifts in from off the screen, and everybody uses it. And this is probably one of the biggest signs of, are you interested in a meeting and are you showing up? Granted, I understand that we're dependent upon our handheld devices and these things, and we do video conferences. I'm guilty. I'm going to be very open about this, right? Of where something comes across and it essentially grabs our what would we say, our attention, and that's what these are designed to do. And I think you got to really start thinking about this in the professional worlds more and more as you're in the meeting or you're in the conversation. And we forget about it. COVID kind of killed that whole perception of being in person and showing up together. And then you can actually feed off of that environment when you're in the same room. It's the distractions of all the technology and the focus that we have to the persons that we're speaking with.
Yeah, and it's important to pay attention to that signal that you get. And as a security leader, like I was guilty of it all the time, right? Like I'd be in a meeting and it goes a certain way, and all of a sudden I'm like, all right, no, I'm here. Yeah, I'm totally got it.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like, and at that point they're checked out.
100%. Right.
And then when they see their boss checked out, they start checking out.
Yes.
Right. But it's tough because we live in this world of, the interrupt distraction cycle, right? Like, you're right. These phones are literally designed to grab your attention instantly. I struggle with even having Slack open. I, of course, have all my alerts always off. But like when I'm on a call, I have to have Slack minimized. Otherwise, I might get a message from finance of like, oh my gosh, and then
There's
I
always
saw
an
the thing.
emergency. Yes. It's always an emergency, right? It's always something that grabs your attention. Oh, I'll just knock it out. And I've read quite a bit about multitasking. I've read why it works, why it's dead. At the end of the day, right? It's one of those things of where you got to drive that personal relationship. And what kind of presence do you want to have? And over time, I think people become more and more aware of it. But at the same instances, maybe do a little bit of upfront, like these meetings that should have been emails, right? That's a definite phone meeting, right? Or you were added because you're one of 50 people. I get it. We got to do better in the corporate world about it, but still in the same instances, if we show up, we make ourselves present, we can get these things done and moved on. Amazon. Sorry.
Go ahead. I got this burning
Amazon
question.
did a pretty interesting piece with this, to where Jeff Bezos continuously said that we're wasting time in the meetings. He makes everybody write ahead of time about what the meeting's for. And that just kind of, I think, shows the culture of where we're at with technology of show up and be prepared.
Yeah, well, I do think that now those Amazon briefs are suddenly going to be all AI generated and be like, hey, did you write the thing? Like, yeah, I totally wrote it. Here you go. I sent it out, right?
Exactly.
But so what I like about this topic, and I think is really interesting, is when we start to break out the dimension of communication. But and we'll get there in just a second. But like, what's the difference between showing up on Zoom versus showing up in person? Like, what do you think is the most tangible thing? Because you're right, like dress conveys something, and it's almost an intangible. Like if I hired a contractor to come, give me a quote to fix my deck, and he shows up in a 3-piece suit, I'm not hiring that guy.
Yeah. It's
right.
You have preconceived bias.
Right. And we have to factor that in, right? Like that's is it more important in person, or how much more important in person is it?
I think in person, I think it reminds us of we're still human, right? And I really think that the in-person meetings and conversations are going to come back in a bigger way as we start to adopt artificial intelligence more and more. I think people are going to crave the human interaction. Well, it seems like we've gotten away from it in a sense of where we had the synthetic interactions via social media and online. And I say synthetic, meaning they're not as genuine. They're not as difficult to resolve conflict, because you're actually in the room with somebody and you're talking to them. You hear them, you hear their reactions, you see their body language, which is another thing that you don't get as much on Zoom because we have face filters. You don't understand. The camera might be off and you can't see someone's eye go quite the way of where they might understand or get something. So I just think that it's just an interesting time in that instance.
But there's also a benefit to it, right? Like, and I'll like if a meeting's recorded, I can play it back and be like, did you see that face? Like, did you see where he went? Or whatever that is, right? Like, there's I think some benefit to that, but there's the reality of where we have like what's it called, the how much what percentage of communication is verbal versus nonverbal, and the rule is 55 38 7% is verbal, so of like what you actually say, so 7% is spoken words, 38% is tone, and then 55% is body language. And so being on a Zoom, the only way you can convey body language is deliberate gesticulation of, oh, I have this big idea, or like, oh, let's really focus in on it, right? But in person, it's all there.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. The human experience.
So how do we reconcile this with, people who've joined the industry since 2020 and their first 3 years were not in person?
Yeah. Well, it's the challenge that I think this younger generation is trying to overcome. I think the press for back to office, while some of us Gen Xers and older folks are like completely happy with it, but we have the experience and the interactions. We need to go on and pass back to the next generation. We have to help them along, whether or not you agree with how these younger kids act and what they're doing. Is you got to just be willing to mentor and help them along the way,
Yeah.
and it's going to take time. I really believe that. One of the key things that I did with my team about showing up, people were struggling, let's say, to work and get engaged, and like just they get in a funk. And I'm trying to remember what book I read it out of, or some motivational speaker. And it was real simple to get people back into a groove of just being present and getting things done.
Yeah.
And it was just figure out 5 things to do today and write it on a card.
Yep.
Because when you're away from the office, like we were with COVID, I saw so many people getting burned out because they just lack human interaction. And I was like, look, man, I want you to write 5 things on this card. And I want 4 of them to be non-work related that you're going to do anyway today. And I want you to do 1 thing for work and do that all week. And then what it does is it drives a reinforcement of I'm accomplishing things because I'm checking off my list. It gives me a guide of how I need to behave in that day and act in order to accomplish my goals. And then it sets planning in of how I'm going to do the next day. And then it allows for self-reflection on how I did with my 5 tasks.
Yeah. No, I think that's great, right? And the new term, which is going viral, is locking in. People are like, he's locked in, like, oh my goodness, like, you know. So I think it's really important for us to all lock in. I also think that we have to be prepared, anticipatory. We have to be very deliberate in so many aspects of how we show up and how we control that presentation. But one thing I think that people fail to realize is your background, right? Like when you're on Zoom, like there are certain things that you can control. Like if you're going to be on a Zoom video, control what you can control. Like,
right.
Which is like if you saw maybe the rest of my office, it might not be as organized and clean as what you can kind of see behind me, right? But you can control the framing of it. And you also have to know that when you're meeting somebody, you're watching a video, a TikTok, a YouTube, whatever, they are uniquely controlling that perspective.
100% correct.
Of what you're seeing, right? So like you might be like, oh wow, Anthony looks very organized.
Yeah. Well, let me show you a great example. Right? I control the frame. You see the glare. You can understand I have a basement office, but this is part of it, right? Noisy rooms, noisy places.
And it's the little things, because like if you're shifted off to the right or to the left a little bit, you could be hopping on a call. It might sound so ridiculous, but like you have one person who's like, I can't even pay attention with that glare that Jason has. Like let's not just scoot over a little bit, right? Like, and the same for me. Like I specifically have these books up here because they're some of the most influential books. And I don't think I've gone more than 2 days without being on a call where someone doesn't mention that. And it becomes just another talk. I'm like, oh, is that good? Great. Oh, is that yeah, another connection point. The framing and how I show up and structured it enables me to have another relationship connection to kind of build to build from there, right?
It's an extension of your personality. And this is the way, when we're on Zoom, these things, Buster Posey behind me, is a way for people to get familiar with who I am without actually understanding exactly who I am.
Yep. And as humans, we pick up those factors, right? And it's part of the reason why one of the reasons why AI is so fascinating is because sometimes you can look at a picture and you're not sure why, but you're like, that's not real.
Yes.
There's no data that's saying, but as a human, you just know that it's not real. And we pick up those similar things in these conversations of like, I don't think they were being authentic. Like that conversation, like it was fine. They said the right things, the 7% words, but the tone of voice and body language.
It's the great experiment, right? Is like, how much are we going to be willing to accept it? One piece is I continuously, I have an artist as a daughter, and she continuously complains about how it's taking away from creators and artists because it's mimicking their art. And I go, I think this is where the separation continues to occur. Is we as people value human content a lot more than we value artificial content.
So okay, this is a whole separate conversation that we should also talk about.
Yeah.
So, and I want to say this, I actually think, and you and I, we've talked about that in the past, companies and individuals we hired for, we valued expertise.
Correct.
And artists, developers, including them as well, artists, their expertise is that they could actually draw. But it doesn't mean that they're necessarily more creative. And so like I kind of view that these tools enable these, not like I'm a bad artist. Like if I try to draw something,
I'm in that camp.
But the fact that now I can take the thing from my brain and turn it into something feels like an enablement for creativity. Like
I agree with that statement for sure.
Right. Like,
but it's your value, right? That's your value and how you put that position forward. And I think that this is the other thing that we're going to head towards, and that's self-awareness, I think, is the other big piece here. And we talk about how we're going to show up. I also believe that you got to be self-aware.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so we've spent some time talking about showing up in general, a little bit about the in-person thing. I know some future episodes we're going to talk about how to network, and I'm sure this aspect of communication and showing up will come through. And I think we should also just double click on this one again, right? Like how did you learn to show up? How did I? But let's save that for another episode, another talk, right? For now, thank you very, very much for this. I always enjoy it. And thanks for listening, everybody. Kapow! Clear. So, question. Should we still use this or should we use the post roll?
You asking me or Lula?
Both of you.
I'd say use it where you want to do the content at. It'll just be faster. Probably. But there is production aspect